Legitimate questions? Blank looks for me. There we go. I'm not getting very many questions or even insults on my channels today, so not much to post, but here we go. One would expect that law enforcement would be able to extract the raw file or have their computer experts extract the raw file. Yes. Shouldn't a computer geek know how to find the raw file without having to be told? All right. Microsoft Corporation made two versions of Microsoft Word. The one made for corporations like a bank had the ability to encrypt or decrypt a file, just like all the others, right? I mean, you can set it to be encrypted or decrypted and make it private. But when you exported it, specifically because it was obvious you would be exporting it to external programs, like let's say something running under Linux or Macintosh, it would accidentally break certain features, and you could unbreak it by typing in a code word. It was a secret password, a magic password sometimes called, that only Microsoft could run. So, not that I'm saying I helped or anything, but Microsoft Corporation got dragged into court because they did this to an executive, not an executive, a subsection within a major bank. I was one of thousands of geeks who walked in the room and said, there is no technical reason for this to require that they pay $10,000 a pop for what amounts to a backdoor key to the file. The file wasn't encrypted. When they exported it explicitly so you could run it on a Linux machine or Macintosh and print it out without getting Microsoft Corporation their little pound of flesh money for another license, they deliberately sabotaged the file so it wouldn't print correctly and would hide or obscure certain parts of the document. Now, obviously, you could force it to be exported in a format that never had these problems, but you had to know to do that in the first place. Most people didn't know that, because these are people working in a large company and they have no interest in learning about any of this stuff. Their only interest is making sure that they can make money and be greedy and wallow in $100 bills while they're snorting cocaine. But the thing is, us geeks knew that it was simply a password. And the thing is, it was a password. So, of course, they said, you're not allowed to release this. And, of course, it was subpoenaed in open court, so they couldn't fucking do anything about it. And the password was a string of like 20 to 30 characters and immediately became part of public record, which meant everybody who had a corporate copy, where they should have gotten less harassment, not more, suddenly could get their files back and print them out easily. Okay, next thing. We're talking about a company that instead of exporting a video in the video file format, its main option is to save the thing primarily as an executable. And obviously, it is trivial for an executable to be written in such a way that it can be encrypted or encoded or copy protected or digital millennium copyright protected. And it's trivial, obviously trivial for computer geeks to get around this. But it's also trivial for them to hire computer geeks like me to prevent that. And this is the thing. Every single corporate, commercial, or consumer grade piece of software out there can be written legally to harass and sabotage you anytime they want to, because you all gave up your rights when you didn't make Congress and make the government and make the consumer protection people prevent this. Every piece of software you use has these same kind of restrictions. Sometimes it's a good idea, like you have to get a subpoena to get or have the police department get at your actual real antenna and transponder records for your telephone conversations over the last, like, let's say 3 months. The phone company won't give it. For many decades, the telephone company literally lied to the Federal Bureau of Investigations and your local police about being able to instantly trace calls. Eventually, they had to stop lying about it because it was really obvious that they were lying, but they tried to lie literally so that people wouldn't subpoena them and violate people's privacy by having a secret subpoena, which was a problem. They didn't want to deal with J. Edgar Hoover. And no, they were able to trace calls way back. You can look up the Telephonics Blue Book and that sort of thing, or the color books. Next, we're talking about, in this case, some company that makes software for people to run a security system that doesn't automatically default to saving raw files. Even though when I did the extraction, I actually did this. I mean, you can do it within the program. It probably is the raw file. It's already compressed to hell. It actually makes a smaller file. So why would they include the player? Convenience. I make self-extracting zip files. The extractor toy is an extractor stub, but the file itself is a zip file or .zt or whatever, or tar file. And there's no real requirement for it to contain simply the stub and then append on the end of it just a zip file, even though that's an easy way to do it. It could be done a dozen different ways, especially if you put a password on it. So law enforcement being able to extract a raw file, why would you assume law enforcement agents and law enforcement in general or police are technically unchallenged, are actually technically capable? I spent off and on 6 months, years and years ago, explaining to cops that when you find a computer at some drug lab, don't fucking touch it. Do you know how to write a program? No. Do you know how to retrieve data? No. Then don't touch the computer. It's that simple. It's like what they tell you, if you do not know how to operate a gun, or if you don't know what kind of gun you're looking at, don't fucking touch it. For all you know, it's a booby trap or whatever in the military. And also, if you're an ordinary person, you shouldn't pick up a gun, and if you're a kid, you shouldn't touch a gun because you don't know what you're doing. And telling a cop, no, you have to actually say on audio and video recording, I actually did this to harass them, I don't know what I'm doing on a computer, and I'm never going to be an idiot, or something like that. I just made them humiliate themselves because they thought it was very humiliating to admit they didn't know how to do something. And then after a while, they realized, no, I don't know how to do any of that. And I'm like, I don't disarm bombs. I'm not a qualified explosives ordnance guy. I've done a little bit of knowledge in the area. I know some things, but I know 2 det techs in my life. They all have their fingers. That's pretty good. I'm not going to touch a bomb. I don't know what I'm doing. And you should think of that as that way in a computer. Law enforcement people are notorious for not knowing what the fuck they're doing with technology. The joke about them is they type as badly as I do, 1 finger at a time. I don't type because I never learned to touch type. But computer geeks, the idea that we all magically suddenly understand every computer system or know how to decode every file or whatever, I know how to do it. I can do it the hard way. That's not the point. The company that wrote the software should have been contacted and they should have told them, export it as the raw file format, don't export it as an executable. It makes it harder to download, it sets off virus scanner problem alarms, it's a stub file, it's going to be incomplete, and if it's corrupted, it'll fuck up the whole file. There is no technical reason for them to do that, except they wanted to default it so that it would put up an advertisement for their company across the screen, just like the screenshot I used. Yeah, that's literally why they did it. Otherwise, it's just a random file you could upload on YouTube or whatever. It wouldn't matter where it came from. It's sort of like when you watch the news and they put their logo on it. It's called branding. They did this so they could make every video they make as an advertisement. It doesn't matter that it's being used in a courtroom. I know we're discussing murder and death and somebody being mutilated and blood on the walls, but wow, look at that video quality. Yeah, some asshat made this decision. So to review, don't expect law enforcement to know how to do shit. They never do. That's why they hire experts. Don't expect the experts to know how to do something if the company aggressively prevents you from being able to do it. Microsoft, or Apple, or Google, or any other large corporation that has it in their best interest to make sure that you and I have no power over our data. Ever. Facebook. I can name off companies all damn day. And also, they should have anticipated a geek like me, breaking their file format and actually making an extractor. I'd like to point out, however, that running all of the extractors I could find, I couldn't get the file to come out either. They obfuscated it on purpose, so you'd be dependent on them. And I guarantee you that software probably checks on the internet to see if the company went out of business, so it'll keep you from getting your files back. Always use open standard file formats. Do not use anything proprietary closed standard. Ever. If you do, you're a fool. So anyway, I hope I've answered your question. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. Good luck to that. And again, repeating. Never assume the police or even a geek can do something that you can't, when the company should make it to where you don't need a geek or the law enforcement people to do it.